Hello, everyone. After what feels like a complete reset, I'm finally ready to talk about the absolute madness that has been my life recently. I'm 28 years old, and until a few months ago, I was completely convinced that I was about to marry the love of my life, Maya. We had been together for 4 years, and as far as I knew, our foundation was rock solid. But sitting here today, looking at the wreckage of what we had, I still ask myself how I managed to miss the signs. Maya and I met at an art gallery opening, introduced by a mutual college buddy. She was witty, fiercely independent, and had a sharp, straightforward attitude that immediately drew me in. I had been in relationships before, but none of them felt this effortless. We moved into a trendy city condo together after just 12 months. Everything seemed aligned: our career goals, our values, and our timeline for eventually starting a family. She worked as a freelance brand strategist, and I was a senior operations manager at a renewable energy firm, meaning our weekly routines mirrored each other perfectly. Our life wasn't filled with Hollywood luxury, but it was deeply satisfying. We talked about marriage as an inevitability, so last year I finally made it official. No massive public spectacle, just a quiet, intimate dinner I cooked at our place. Maya burst into tears, threw her arms around my neck, and said yes. That very weekend, we began mapping out our future: a crisp October wedding, a small circle of our closest friends, and a stunning historic pavilion near the botanical gardens. I genuinely believed every single piece of my life was clicking into place. But looking back, the early red flags were there. They were small, quiet anomalies that I swept under the rug because I simply didn't want to become paranoid. For starters, Maya's vibrant energy for wedding planning vanished in a thin air after about 90 days. In the beginning, she flooded my inbox with design concepts, spent hours looking at bridal aesthetics, and wanted my input on everything down to the table runners. Then, without explanation, she just stopped. I'd bring it up casually, like asking if she'd locked in her maid of honor, and she'd just wave her hand dismissively. "Not yet. There's no rush. Let's worry about it next month," she'd say. The milestone event of our lives had become a chore she wanted to indefinitely postpone. I rationalized it as burnout from her freelance corporate clients. I assumed she'd snap out of it. I had no idea her lack of enthusiasm had absolutely nothing to do with the wedding and everything to do with me. The actual wake-up call happened during a casual Friday night out with our regular friend group. Someone suggested playing a popular, light-hearted party game where everyone has to answer highly personal questions rapidly without filtering their responses. The atmosphere was loud and fun until one specific card was pulled. If you could instantly relive one past romance, which one would it be? Without a single second of hesitation, Maya blurted out, "Oh, definitely Austin." Austin, her college ex-boyfriend. The guy who famously broke her heart and cheated on her right before graduation. The moment the name left her lips, the entire table went dead silent. The heavy, awkward tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Maya gave a nervous, forced laugh and immediately tried to damage control, stammering, "Obviously not that I want to go back to him. Just that it was a massive, dramatic chapter of my youth, you know." I wanted to address it right then and there, but we were in a public venue surrounded by our friends, so I swallowed my pride and kept a straight face. Later that night, once the apartment door closed behind us, I brought it up. "What was that about Austin tonight? Why is he the first person you think about when asked about past relationships?" She shrugged it off like I was making a mountain out of a molehill. "It was just a stupid drinking game, Ethan. Don't be so fragile and insecure," she smiled, smoothly pivoting the conversation to a work project. I dropped it because I didn't want to ignite a massive argument over what could have been a thoughtless comment. But deep down, it planted a seed of doubt that I couldn't shake. After that night, her behavioral shifts became impossible to ignore. She was suddenly glued to her phone, staring at her screen with this subtle, private smirk. She started weaving these vague, open-ended excuses for why she couldn't lock in weekend plans or why she had to cancel our date nights at the absolute 11th hour. "Sorry, babe, A client dropped a massive rebranding project on my desk, or I promised my sister I'd help her redecorate her place this weekend. The excuses weren't explicitly incriminating on their own, but they were stacking up like a wall between us. I was rapidly sliding down her priority list. Then came a rainy Tuesday evening that permanently fractured our reality. I finished my quarterly reviews early and headed home, genuinely excited to surprise Maya with takeout and a relaxed movie night. But the second I stepped through the front door, the energy in the condo felt entirely off. Maya was sitting rigidly on the sofa, clutching her open laptop, but she wasn't typing. She was staring blankly at the wall, completely checked out. "Hey, I'm home," I murmured, hoping to break the heavy silence. "You're early," she replied. It didn't sound like a warm welcome. It sounded like an accusation. I brushed it off and headed to the kitchen to unpack the food, but the atmosphere was suffocating. Normally, she'd ask how my presentations went. Tonight, there was just the hum of the refrigerator. Finally, I leaned against the counter and asked, "Is everything okay, Maya?" She closed her laptop slowly and looked at me with an expression that made my stomach completely drop. "Actually, Ethan, there's something we need to talk about. You know that visceral instinct you get right before a car crash? That was me, standing there like an idiot with a container of takeout in my hands." I walked over and sat on the armchair across from her. "All right," I said, keeping my voice level. "What's going on?" She paused, adjusting her posture as if searching for a gentle way to shatter my life. Then she just spilled it. "I've been thinking a lot about us and about Austin. He reached out a while ago, and it made me realize I have unresolved feelings." I almost laughed out of sheer disbelief. "Austin? The guy who treated you like garbage? What about him?" She bit her lip, refusing to meet my gaze. "I think I need some time to process things. I want to take a short break to see if there's still a spark there with him. I need to know before we get married." I stared at her, wondering if I had accidentally stepped into a parallel universe. "You want to put our engagement on hold so you can test drive your toxic ex? Are you out of your mind, Maya?" "It's not like that," she insisted hurriedly, reaching out as if she could smooth over the audacity of her words. "I just want to ensure I'm making the absolute right choice with you. If it doesn't work out with him, I promise I'll come back and we can proceed with the wedding." That was the exact moment something inside me flipped. It wasn't an explosion of anger. It was a cold, crystalline wave of clarity. She genuinely believed that I would sit on a shelf like a trophy, waiting patiently while she decided whether I was good enough to be her consolation prize. "So let me get this straight," I said, leaning forward. "You need a break to date other men, but I'm supposed to sit here and reflect on how to be a better fiancé? What kind of backward logic is that?" Maya sighed, looking at me as if I were the one being deeply unreasonable. "It's not about you doing anything wrong, Ethan. This is about me securing the clarity I owe to myself before making a lifelong commitment." The sheer entitlement was staggering. She had clearly rehearsed this speech. She didn't want a discussion. She was delivering a verdict. "You know this sounds completely insane, right?" I muttered. "You don't put a 4-year relationship on pause to play what if with a guy who cheated on you." Her face instantly hardened. "I'm not asking for your permission, Ethan. I'm telling you what I need." That line landed like a physical blow. The sadness evaporated, completely replaced by an icy resolve. "All right, Maya. If that's what you need, take your break." She blinked, visibly caught off guard by how effortlessly I collapsed my defense. She expected a fight, tears, or a desperate plea for her to stay. When I gave her nothing but a blank stare, she stood up awkwardly, grabbed her laptop, and muttered, "I'll stay at my sister's apartment for a couple of weeks. This isn't the end, Ethan. We'll talk when the air clears." "Sure," I replied. I sat calmly on the couch as she packed a duffel bag and walked out the door. The moment the lock clicked shut, my mind began operating with corporate efficiency. Maya had spent months planning her little romantic sabbatical, completely forgetting one critical, mathematical reality. The city condo we lived in was entirely in my name. She picked out the velvet drapes and the wall art, but I paid the down payment and every single cent of the mortgage. The very next morning, I called a premier real estate agent. By Monday afternoon, the condo was officially listed on the market. It was a highly desirable neighborhood, and within 48 hours, we had 3 competitive offers. While the paperwork was processing, I started purging her presence from my life. Those minimalist, overpriced throw pillows she insisted on, donated to Goodwill. The aesthetic wall art, trashed. As for her clothes, shoes, and design equipment left in the office, I didn't call her and I didn't text her. I hired a local professional moving company, had them pack every single one of her belongings into heavy-duty boxes, and delivered them straight to her sister's doorstep. Attached to the top box was a brief, typed note. Here is your inventory. Good luck with Austin. Naturally, our mutual friends started asking questions. Instead of playing the heartbroken victim or launching a smear campaign, I chose weaponized honesty. Whenever someone asked what happened, I offered the exact same flat delivery. Maya decided she needed to explore her options with her ex-boyfriend before committing to a marriage. I decided I am not anyone's backup plan. No drama, no insults, just pure, unadulterated facts. It was fascinating to watch how quickly her carefully crafted narrative of self-discovery disintegrated the moment the truth was laid bare. By midweek, Maya began to panic. Her sister had called her about the mountain of boxes, and she realized I wasn't sitting in the dark weeping. She called me 7 times before I finally picked up. "Ethan, what are you doing?" she screamed into the phone, her voice cracking with emotion. "Why are you acting like this is completely over? I told you it was just a temporary break." "It is over, Maya," I said, my voice completely steady. "You made a choice to see if the grass was greener. I simply chose to close the gate behind you." "But what if I realize you're the one I want?" she sobbed. "Then you'll have learned a very expensive lesson about taking stable people for granted," I said, and hung up the phone. By the following week, my exit strategy was operating at 100% efficiency. I wasn't just listing the condo, I was completely rewriting my future. For months, our company's West Coast branch had been scouting for a senior operations director to lead the new tech infrastructure launch in San Francisco. It was a massive promotion with a significant equity package, the kind of career leap I would have turned down 6 months ago because Maya wanted to stay close to her local design network. I scheduled an emergency meeting with the VP of operations on Thursday. By Friday afternoon, the transfer was officially signed, sealed, and approved. The timing was almost poetic. The closing date for the sale of my condo was locked in for the exact same week my corporate flight was scheduled to depart. Meanwhile, Maya's romantic fairy tale with Austin was crashing into a wall of reality. Our city's design and tech circles are incredibly small, and gossip travels fast. Through a former colleague, I learned that Austin hadn't magically transformed into a loyal, mature partner over the last 4 years. Within 10 days of Maya moving her things, he was already back to his old habits, flirting with junior designers at industry mixers and deleting text threads right in front of her. Maya tried desperately to maintain control of her public image. She began posting vague, stylized quotes on her Instagram about healing and isolation and trusting the universe's timing. I decided to counter her poetry with corporate facts. I made a single, public post on my professional and social accounts. Incredibly thrilled to announce that I've accepted the position of Director of Regional Operations in San Francisco. A massive thank you to my team. When one door closes, a much bigger one opens. Looking forward to this brand new chapter. The response was immediate. Dozens of congratulations, network inquiries, and, inevitably, direct messages asking what this meant for the engagement. To anyone who asked, I provided the exact same cold, objective data. We split up. Maya wanted to explore other romantic options, so I'm moving on to explore mine. That was the match that set her professional life on fire. Maya's freelance brand strategy business relied entirely on corporate referrals and industry networking. A few days after my post went live, Sarah, a high-profile creative director who regularly outsourced premium contracts to Maya, asked me out for coffee. "Ethan, I need the unedited version of what happened," Sarah said, leaning across the cafe table. "Maya is telling her clients that the two of you are taking a strategic individual pause to focus on your internal growth. But it feels entirely off to me." I didn't bash Maya. I didn't call her names. I simply opened my phone and slid the original text message Maya had sent her sister across the table, along with a screenshot where she explicitly stated she wanted to test her feelings for Austin. Sarah's expression instantly froze. In the corporate world, if you show that you treat a 4-year personal commitment like a casual trial period, clients immediately begin to question how you handle long-term professional contracts. By the end of that exact week, 2 of Maya's largest corporate clients quietly postponed their upcoming rebranding projects with her. They didn't explicitly cite the breakup. They just told her their internal budgets had shifted. But the message was loud and clear. Then came the final blow. Austin, in his complete lack of awareness, posted a high-resolution photo of him and Maya having a romantic dinner at the Glass House, the exact upscale restaurant where I had taken Maya for our very first anniversary. It was a pathetic attempt to overwrite our history. But the post backfired spectacularly. Our entire mutual friend group saw the image, realized the timeline, and completely lost any remaining respect for her self-discovery narrative. Even Maya's own sister sent me a direct message that evening. "Ethan, I am so incredibly embarrassed by how she is handling this. You deserved a partner who knew your worth from day one. I'm sorry. I didn't have to seek revenge. I didn't have to argue. I just lived my life transparently and allowed her own choices to dismantle her reputation." On my absolute last day at the local office, I was standing by the copy machine when the glass door swung open. It was Maya. She looked exhausted, her hair unstyled, carrying a file folder. The confident, practiced persona she held on my sofa 2 weeks ago had completely evaporated. She was crying before she even reached my desk. "Ethan, please," she sobbed, completely ignoring the fact that my coworkers were watching. "I made a catastrophic mistake. Austin is exactly the same liar he always was. I was just terrified of the wedding commitment. I panicked. I thought I needed to know if there was something else out there, but I was wrong. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Please, can we just go to counseling? I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild your trust." I looked at her, feeling absolutely no anger, no malice, just a profound sense of detachment. "No, Maya," I said, my voice cutting through her panic with perfect clarity. "The best thing that ever happened to me was you showing me your true colors before I signed a marriage certificate. This isn't about Austin anymore. This is about the fact that you thought you could keep a good man on standby while you shopped around for a better option. That isn't a panic attack. That's convenience." She left the office completely devastated, and for the first time in months, I felt an incredible sense of relief. The following week, the contract for the condo was finalized. The property actually sold for $15,000 above the asking price, giving me an even larger financial cushion for my relocation. The funniest part of the entire situation was Maya's reaction when she realized the transaction was real. According to mutual friends, she genuinely believed I was bluffing about selling the place to scare her. She didn't believe a single word of it until she actually drove past the building and saw a moving truck unloading a stranger's mid-century furniture into what used to be our living room. Her fantasy of a safe backup option vanished on the spot. But the absolute peak of irony arrived 3 days before my flight to California. Austin, of all people, sent me a massive direct message on LinkedIn. He went into this long, overly defensive explanation about how he never intended to destroy an engagement, claiming that Maya had actually been secretly messaging him for 4 months before she ever demanded the break. She hadn't panicked on a random Tuesday. She had been carefully calculating her exit strategy for a third of a year, trying to ensure the safety net with Austin was fully secure before letting go of my hand. The ultimate punchline? Austin ended up dumping her anyway. As he put it in his message, if she could cold-bloodedly orchestrate a betrayal like that against the guy she was about to marry, she would do the exact same thing to me the second a wealthier option came along. By the time I landed in San Francisco, Maya's professional infrastructure was completely in ruins, and she brought the final catastrophe entirely upon herself. She had forgotten one critical technical detail. Because her brand strategy business was freelance, I was the one who had built her professional portfolio website, secured her domain name, and managed her cloud hosting account. A month after the split, Her premium hosting subscription expired. Since my corporate credit card was linked to the automatic renewal, I had deactivated the account weeks prior. Maya had no idea how to access the backend servers or migrate her design files. When a high-profile agency clicked on her portfolio link to review her case studies, they were met with a blank screen and a domain expired notice. She texted me in an absolute frenzy. "Why are you trying to systematically erase my entire career? You can't just delete my life's work." I sent back a single corporate-style sentence. "Our mutual service agreement ended when you requested your break. Secure your own hosting. Best of luck." Today, San Francisco is everything I needed it to be. My new apartment has a stunning view of the bay, the tech infrastructure project is pacing ahead of schedule, and I've recently adopted a massive German Shepherd from a local shelter. His name is Zeus, and he's a significantly better companion than my ex-fiancée ever was. I've joined a regional outdoor cycling club and have even been invited to keynotes at logistics conferences, opportunities that would have never crossed my path if I'd stayed in Pennsylvania dragging dead weight behind me. Some of our old small-town acquaintances still send me messages saying I was too harsh and that I should have been more empathetic to her moment of confusion. But I refuse to compromise on my reality. A 4-month secret text thread and an itemized plan to test drive an ex-boyfriend is not a moment of confusion. It is a calculated decision to treat a loyal partner like a safety net. What is the ultimate lesson I walked away with? Sometimes the most painful betrayals are actually massive structural upgrades in disguise. If Maya hadn't exposed her true nature, I would have walked down that aisle, signed a legally binding contract, and likely discovered her true character years down the road with a mortgage and children caught in the crossfire. Instead, I avoided the wreckage, stepped into a vice president track, and reclaimed my self-worth. Thank you so much to everyone in the community who kept me grounded when everything first dissolved. If this story reminded you that you are a first-choice priority, not a fallback plan, please give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment with your thoughts below, and hit that subscribe button. Life is far too short to be someone's backup option. Take care, and I will see you in the next story.